I've been in street fights and I've been hit bare knuckle, but you know, obviously getting in there in a competition and like actually like fighting with technical purpose and the mindset to win, I mean, it could be completely different. I've never done one, so I'm gonna sit here and tell you that I think it's gonna be fine, but until you get in there and you get hit by one, who knows? For
you, what's the experience like when you walk into the cage? Like maybe your first UFC fight.
Dude, it's one of the craziest feelings. Like I try to compare it to anything else in my life that I've felt, and I can't.
I think it was Jose Aldo when he like grabbed that cage. If he didn't grab that and you were able to take him down, like knockout might have not happened there. Those are like decisive small moments that if they changed, you might have had a belt, right? How after coming out of the UFC and now you're going to bare knuckle, how do you feel about that? Where everything, you were just like an inch away, or a moment away.
That's the name of the game, man. That's what you know, can either make or break a fighter.
PowerProject family, how's it going? Now, we partnered with an amazing brand, Bubs Naturals. We actually have some of the products on the table. Their MCT oil powder, their collagen protein, and this their apple cider vinegar gummies, okay? One thing I want to let you guys know real quick is that the Bubs products, number one, they mix super well. So I've had different MCT oils and I've talked to people who've used MCT oil and mentioned to their coffee, and it doesn't mix well. Well, their MCT oil is amazing on coffee in the morning just on its own, but their collagen protein, and collagen is great for joint health, hair, skin, nails, all that stuff, that also mixes just so well into coffee and everything. That's one of the crazy things. But secondly, these freaking apple cider vinegar gummies, I don't ever supplement apple cider vinegar, but they put them in gummies, which is great. 2 per serving. We have literally eaten one of these full things. Andrew and I have split this. And Mark has to be so careful. Like, we give him 2 and we take it away because it tastes so good, but it's actually really good for you. So Andrew, tell them how to get it.
Yes, guys, seriously, have just the recommended dosage. Just have 2 of those gummies. Don't have 2 full bottles the way we do. Head over to bubsnaturals.com and at checkout, enter promo code PowerProject to save 20% off your entire order. And what's really cool about Bubs Naturals is they actually donate 10% of all their profits to various charities, starting with the Glenn Doherty Memorial Foundation. Again, bubsnaturals.com, promo code PowerProject to save 20% off. Links to them down in the description, as well as the podcast show notes.
I don't like lotion on my hands though. That's why
I get super
I feel that. Well, if you really rub it in though, you don't feel it.
No, you still do.
No, you gotta really rub it in. That's the problem.
Especially if they do start to sweat a little bit and they get all slippery.
Yeah, dude, they're always oil. Like I can't do it.
All right, listen, it's all about the application. I used to also think, lotion slimy, but when you really rub that shit in, you don't feel it. It gets into the skin.
I gotta toughen up my hands anyways.
Yeah, I learned that from a woman. I didn't know that. That's
kind of. I think using lotion is a little bit like using chapstick. You know, once you start using it, then you're kind of stuck with it, and you got to use it. And it's like, damn, I forgot my lotion.
There you go.
There's also a difference
because lather.
Yeah, it smells all right.
It smells good.
But Amadeo can probably relate, and you to an extent. You know, when you get ashy, you know, like you got that white shit, right? So you gotta, you don't want to be looking all ashy. Yeah, like elbows,
psoriasis
knees,
right there. It does get
psoriasis. Exactly. Knees,
ankles. I'm fully lubed up for this podcast.
Let's go.
Expecting it to go this way.
Just take the shirt off and oil it down.
Oh yeah. Oh, this feels good, Nsima. Thank you.
I'm here.
What else you got? What else you got?
Let's see. Like some deodorant? That's
the
one you gave me.
That's accurate. That's usually what happens when somebody tries to give me something around here. It's usually mine. One of the guys in the gym the other day, he was like over by the dumbbell rack and he's like, "Is this yours?"
Yeah.
And so I took him around the gym. I took him from corner to corner to corner, and he didn't get it. He didn't understand what I was doing. I was like, see, from over here, all the way over to this way, all the way through here. And we literally walked the whole perimeter of the gym. And I'm like, and all the way over that way. I was like, that's all mine.
Yeah.
And then he was like, oh. And then it wasn't funny anymore because he got sad. I was like, oh, I wasn't trying to, I was just trying to be a playful idiot. You know,
that's funny.
Dude, so what's going on since last time we saw you? It was maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I think, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were just trying to figure that out, but just a lot of stuff actually. I mean, we just had our second baby.
Damn.
Yeah, 2 girls. I'm officially a girl.
You and Amadeo?
Mm-hmm. Well, he's
it's a new world out there.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
2022 now.
Damn.
But yeah, I started a few businesses and just things have been nonstop, but good.
What was the reason for your departure from UFC? Was it just was it career wise? You were kind of just a little bit done with the sport, or what was it?
Yeah, a couple of things. I mean, for me, where my contract was, I signed a way too many fight deal contract back in the day. And at the time it was a decent deal, but it was an 8-fight contract. And, when you're getting to the top, you're really fighting 1 time a year, maybe 2 times a year. There's just not that many fights that make sense for you. So that contract takes a while. And
I see. So like an 8-fight thing, like in the beginning, you might get through 3-4 fights pretty quick.
Yeah.
But then the next 3 or 4 fights might take a while.
Yeah. But, well, when I re-signed that, I was already, fighting for the title. So I don't know why we signed it. We shouldn't have signed a deal that long. But anyway, so my last fight, it just wasn't worth it for me, what we were going through, what I was putting my body through, putting my wife through. Like, it just wasn't worth the money to me. And, I had started another business, Fins and Feathers, and that was doing really well. And we basically just decided, I told these guys that night, like it was time. So I stepped away.
How tough is that on your family and some of the people around you when you're constantly like in these fight camps or constantly like wondering when you're going to fight next? You got to be prepped, but at the same time, you're not quite in camp yet type of thing.
It's tough, man. And I'll be honest. So I'm fighting February 19th. We've been training for probably 7 months?
Yeah, some
7-8 months, because the fight just got postponed a couple times. But this is the first time I've done it with kids, and it is night and day, man. Like I miss the days where you could just go and train all day and then look forward to coming home and showering, relaxing, and just,
now you need somewhere else to go.
Exactly. Now you train you train at the gym, and then you come home and it's nonstop, like doing stuff all day. There's no rest time until
home
you go
is
to
harder
sleep.
than the gym.
Yeah. So it's definitely a lot more challenging. But I think we're figuring it out, getting the system down. There's been some other stuff, family medical issues that have kind of come up. And so there's just a bunch of different things thrown in the mix, but, all in all, I think everything's good, and training's been really well. I've been feeling really good. Amadeo's been pushing me. Joey's been pushing me. Everything's kind of clicking and coming together. So I'm ready. I'll be ready February 19th.
Do you think that it's possible to, like, when you look at yourself when you were a little bit younger and maybe you didn't have your business and you didn't have your daughters, like you were mentioning, obviously you have more time to focus on training, but do you think that there's a difference in like your level of, I don't know, intensity at getting ready, since it doesn't seem that you're necessarily like hurting for money. You have a great business, right? And a lot of fighters, when they're young, all they think about is fighting, because that's where they're going to make their money. So it's like, I got to survive. At this point, you don't necessarily have to survive anymore. Do you think there's a difference there?
I think so. It's definitely a big weight lifted off my shoulders. I'm sure anyone in that situation would probably feel the same. It's pretty much what you just said. You're starting off, you're trying to make a name for yourself in the sport. Especially coming off the wrestling career that I had, there was so much pressure on me to, there's so many people like, oh, he's going to be such a killer in there. And it's like, that's a lot of pressure that you have to live up to and perform for. And, you get into it, you start building yourself up. But, the way that the UFC structures payments, it's usually split 50-50. So, it might look like a big chunk of money when you see it. But if you show up, you make weight, you get half of it. If you win, you get the other half. If you lose, you don't get that money. So that is also a big stress factor. And, I got to make sure that I'm doing everything I need to do, because that's a lot of money that I'm going to be losing out on if I don't win this fight.
Yeah.
I think all in all, with everything being a lot more comfortable in life, going into this fight as something that I'm looking forward to as fun. Like, I'm 36 years old. I feel like in my prime. I didn't leave the sport because I felt like I couldn't compete with the best in the world anymore. I just made the decision it wasn't worth it. This is the biggest payday that I ever got in the UFC, that I'm about to get in this fight organization.
Wait, seriously?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's pretty cool to have that type of, end game in sight. It makes it worth going through the grind and putting your body through hell and cutting the weight and, pushing through those times with Amadeo when you don't want to do it. And, it definitely makes it a lot easier. So yeah, all in all, I think, life is a little bit less stressful as far as financially talking, but outside of that, the family, having kids, running businesses, that's all different stress. But
I'm a huge Rocky fan. I don't know if you remember the scene in Rocky when he goes to his wife and he's trying to explain how he wants to come out of retirement, and they're going back and forth, and it's not going so good. I'm imagining that's how a lot of this went.
100%. Yeah.
But then she finally tells him, like, she's like, I want you just to do one thing. And he's like, what's that? And she says, win. And then the music hits, and then he's like back to training and all that kind of stuff. Do you have an epic talk like that with your wife?
Oh yeah, man.
About bare knuckle fighting now?
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm not in UFC anymore. So that's the good news. But the bad news is we're taking the gloves off.
God damn. It was tough, man. And bare knuckle had kind of come to us for probably the last, now it would have been 1.5, 2 years. And there was a number that was thrown out, and I'm like, not happening. Like, that's just not worth getting back in. Everything's good. I don't need to fight. I'm obviously would love to, but it's got to make sense. And they just kept, throwing numbers at us over that amount of time. And finally, towards the end, it was a number that it's like, all right, I'll go in there and beat somebody up for that. And it was tough sitting down with the wife and trying to even bring that up to her. She wasn't a big fan of it. She still isn't a big fan of it, but it's pretty much like the Rocky scene. I explained to her, and this is how I explained it. In the UFC, you have 4-ounce gloves. They got about a 1/2 inch of leather and padding that covers your knuckles.
I love this justification story that we got going here.
There's nothing on your shins. I can get head kicked, shin upside my head.
These are all good explanations.
I can get elbowed, limbs ripped off, torn ligaments, and so, I don't have a pad, any type of pad on my knuckle, but the concussion, I feel like getting the hit in the head is going to be the same with an MMA glove on or bare knuckle. Basically, it's the cuts that are probably going to happen a little bit more with sharp knuckles versus the leather on the outside of it. But I mean, like I said, getting kicked in the head. I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever been kicked in the head, but it doesn't feel good. Yeah,
I've only held pads and got kicked in the head, and that already like kind of got me all dizzy. I'm like, fuck, I can't imagine actually getting kicked in the head.
Or the knee that I took from Aldo when I turned around, as I shot in, he threw like.
I got kicked in the face pretty good by John Cena. That was pretty bad. And my eye just went bam. And then maybe 2-3 days later, like no one really told me, but you can't sneeze. I didn't know about that.
Blood vessels.
Yeah, that was fucking nasty.
What happened? Did some shit pop?
It just blew up. It just like sat there. And I had to wear like sunglasses for like 2 weeks.
When you break your nose,
you can't
blow out because both your eyes.
Okay.
Yeah. Both your eyes, they blow
up. Swell up.
Yeah, I got kicked right by his heel, right, like literally right on my eyeball. Hurt so bad.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good.
All right, that makes me kind of curious. What does a training camp look like for a bare knuckles fight versus like just boxing or for UFC? Like, how the fuck are you going to simulate bare knuckle shit?
I mean, it's the same as MMA. We don't. I mean, we do put like puffy. They call them puffies, where they're smaller gloves and you're just moving. You don't go full blast with those, but. Basically we spar with same 16-ounce gloves that we would in MMA. Any boxer spars with 16-ounce gloves also. Basically you're just getting the movements, figuring out, body positioning, timing, space awareness and all that stuff without getting punched bare knuckle.
This might sound like a stupid question also though, but like, for example, sparring with gloves for UFC or whatever, if you're sparring, no one's going to hit you at 100%. But even if you get hit, you know what that hit feels like. Would you need to know would you need to simulate what a bare knuckle hit feels like before you get in, or you don't need to even understand that? No?
I don't think so. I mean, I know it's not going to feel good. I've been in street fights and I've been hit bare knuckle, but you know, obviously getting in there in a competition and like actually like fighting with technical purpose and the mindset to win, I mean, it could be completely different. I've never done one, so I'm gonna sit here and tell you that I think it's gonna be fine, but until you get in there and you get hit by one, who knows?
Guys that can take a punch, they don't necessarily like train it, right? I mean, I know you can kind of train the body a little bit to get used to some body shots type thing, but there's no one wants to inflict like more damage to their head regardless, right? So you can't really train for it.
Train neck muscles and we do a lot of that stuff. But yeah, you don't, you know, I do see some videos sometimes and it's just, I don't get it, but there'll be coaches just like wailing like 4 or 5 punch combos on people's heads. And it's like, I don't get that at all, but
those are the guys who shouldn't be coaches.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
the whole point of boxing is to not get hit. People forget about that.
Why is your strength coach so big? Super intimidating. Stay a little closer to the mic there.
There you go.
Yeah.
Amadeo, how's this different from training him previously for, I mean, I guess in both cases you're training full body, but you don't have to really worry as much about him like getting up and getting down, getting up and getting down. So
I would say
how's the training different?
The biggest difference is that there's far more skill in boxing than there is in mixed martial arts, because with martial arts, you have to deal with everything. You have to deal with the wrestling, jiu-jitsu, kicks, elbows, all that. With boxing,
this is focused in on one skill.
So he has to become a better boxer, and then obviously that's going to take much more time and repetition. But it's also like MMA's 5 minutes. Like he's got 2-minute rounds. Like
That's
you can
nice.
it changes the whole training process a lot. So it's, you know, it's 2 minutes on, 1 minute off versus 5 minutes, 1 minute. It's much more skill based.
Is there anything like from a training perspective that's different? Like you have him like do dumbbell bench press for time, or like any sort of like upper body type stuff where he hits the bag fast, you know, for a time period type of thing.
The energy stuff. So the energy systems trainings that we're going to do isn't going to change very much, except boxing, even if just regular boxing 3-minute rounds, it tends to be much more anaerobic based, whereas MMA is aerobic based because it's so much longer. And there's probably less shots thrown in MMA because there's so much like circling or grappling or jockeying for position. Where boxing is just kind of, you're right there in their face.
So I almost need a little bit more repeated explosiveness.
Yeah,
in
the
boxing.
explosive repeat is going to be necessary. But
Shit, I've seen him train. He's good at that.
That's probably my favorite. I mean, I've always been more of a shorter, timed, explosive athlete. You know, more, I guess, type 2 muscle. You know, obviously cardio and conditioning is always something I prided myself on through wrestling, but it was mainly me just having to push through the uncomfortable shit. You know, it's not something that I felt good always when those wrestling matches went all the way to the end, or MMA fight, or the round, you know, was balls to the wall for the entire 5 minutes. But, you know, you're just able to push through that. But I feel really good when I can explode and be as powerful and as fast as I possibly can for, you know, 30 seconds, and then, you know, move around for a bit and then do the same thing again. Boom, boom, boom. So we've been doing a lot of, you know, 30-second to a minute explosive like type training. And then we'll get our heart rate back down to about 130, right, is what we were doing. And then get after it again. What
about strength? What do you guys work on with in terms of strength?
He's a speed guy, so when you have somebody who's really fast like that, it's really just like keeping it healthy is the goal with any athlete. But I usually spend more time on that strength side of the spectrum because I don't have to teach somebody to be fast. He's just got it. So it's more about keeping his joints healthy, you know, the tendons, ligaments, his muscles prepared and ready to handle that amount of stress. So
you might take him to what, 80%, 90%, or do you go like with maxes and shit too?
No, we don't hit that many. We're not hitting maxes very much. In martial arts, I probably would closer to a fight, more so because you're getting like, you know, you're getting a big endocrine dump. You know, all the hormones that are coming along with that are very beneficial. But with him, like I said, it's really just about keeping him healthy. You know, the best athletes are always going to be the healthy ones. So I'd take him in there at 100%, you know, and not get 2 lifts in, then, you know, at 80% because we did a deadlift.
Yeah, one of the things I've heard you talk about before, which I haven't really heard other strength coaches talk about, but it's a cue that I took from you and I use it in my own training, is that you should feel better when you're done with your training session and not worse. And when you said that, I was like, okay, I've been doing it wrong for about 25 years.
Not all the time, but there's some training sessions.
I understand the principle though, you know.
Like you're not always trying to correct. Like I think it was Joe Ken who said, like one workout will never make an athlete, but one workout can break an athlete. You know, so you got
Coach House always comes back to him every time.
Yeah.
Do we want to anger Coach House? No, I'm not going to even do that shit. Nope, not on this episode. No. I want to go back to something you guys were talking about in terms of bringing your heart rate back down. Is there a specific way of breathing? Like after all your years of fighting, is there a specific way of breathing that you have when you fight that you find that's easier for you or helps you calm down? I'm wondering this because we've had some people come on here and talk about how beneficial nasal breathing can be. We've had some people come on here and talk about it doesn't matter. From your experience, do you think there is a difference?
I guess I've never paid attention. Does one work better than the other? What I typically do is after a round we come in, he's in my ear, calm your breathing. And so for me, it's real long, deep breaths, typically through my nose. And just try to get as much air in my lungs as possible. And I usually hold it even for a couple seconds and then let it out and push it out. And just do that, 5-6 times. And that usually gets my heart rate down enough to where I'm not heavy breathing anymore. Now I can keep everything calm and collected and get back to thinking, I think the worst thing in a corner, and I've had cornermen do this where it's like, immediately you come back and you're still in that very high mindset and heart's racing and they're already spitting all kinds of info in your ear and it's like, hold on, let me get my wits about me for
they're giving you 10, 15
seconds. Yeah, because I'm not retaining any of that right now. I'm thinking I need to calm my fucking heart rate. So for me, it's like the first 30 seconds of that 1 minute is like calming. The best cornermen are like, okay, breathe, get everything back under control. And then here's a drink, this is what we can do. Start telling me stuff in between.
What is it like for you? What's the experience like when you walk into the cage? Like maybe your first UFC fight and the door slams behind you and the opponent's in there and shit starts to clear out because you have kind of quite a few people in the ring in the beginning and you're announced and stuff. And then it's like the bell actually finally rings.
Dude, it's one of the craziest feelings. I try to compare it to anything else in my life that I've felt and I can't. It's so unique. It's like the whole world is watching you. All this hard work that you just put in through this entire training camp, all the weight cut, that's all done. You have this guy who you've been studying and watching for X amount of weeks, standing right in front of you. You have so much of the unknown and the what ifs playing through your head. It's a game of inches and anything can happen at any time. You make one small mistake and that could be it. So you're just trying to think about all the positives and reinstate in your mind, I'm here for a reason. I know what it's going to take to beat this guy. We have the game plan. Let's get over there and beat this dude's ass. And, it's crazy. It's a crazy feeling. Your adrenaline's through the roof. You're trying to keep everything calm and collected. And, as all this is going on, that time is getting closer and closer to go time. Yeah. And usually by the time you're done thinking all this stuff, it's like, you ready? Let's get it on. And everything's gone. Let's go.
Yeah. Kind of a blur once the fight starts, or are you able to, because some people can say I can see people in the audience and what's it like for you?
I'd say the first probably half of my fights in my career were blackout. Just, I don't even know what's going on. It's just all instinct. And then from there on, it was a lot more, I guess, cognitive in there. You can
calm yourself down a bit.
Slow down a little bit.
Yeah, which I almost don't like. I actually liked the blackout, let my body and everything, all the hard work take over and just go. Sometimes I feel like it's a little bit easier to deal with for some reason. Sometimes when I'm too calm and I can hear everybody talking, I can, I think too much instead of just letting my body do its thing.
That'd be distracting. You're like, I gotta watch out for his left hook, and then all of a sudden
someone yells something.
You get booted right in the chest by his right foot or whatever. You're like, fuck, I can't breathe.
Oh yeah.
I have a question about that though. Wait, so you said when you're too calm, there are so many other things you pay attention to. I'm curious about that because some people, when they're able to be so super calm, then they're able to focus on that one thing. But for you, what do you mean exactly? Like, and when you say you blacked out, not blacked out, but like, and you ran on instinct, were you like, do you feel that you were like more emotional, a little bit angrier when you were fighting at that? No?
No, it was never anything emotional. I've never gone into a fight angry trying to kill a guy. It's a sport, and it's like I know what the game plan is. I know what we've trained through this whole camp, and I need to get out there and implement that and do it to win the fight. It's about winning. But what I mean by blacking out, I don't necessarily black out, but it's such a high pace, such an emotional, I guess, adrenaline ride that you're not thinking much. It's all reaction. It's, you're basically just going into, I don't even know how to explain it, but you're not like thinking of process. You're going out there and your body's just taking over, So that's the blackout phase of it. But there's been fights where I'm like so calm that, like I said, I can hear so many people in the crowd talking. I can hear his cornerman yelling stuff at him, my cornerman yelling stuff. I remember just seeing everybody all around me, my wife, friends. And it's almost distracting a little bit. And not that I can't focus, but I feel like sometimes it is easier just to let your body take over and not have to think and hear and listen and go through all that stuff. It's just like boom, 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 boom. Just smoked them,
Have you been able to like tap into like maybe a different type of motivation now that you have your daughters?
Yeah, I mean, I think this will be the first fight that I've fought with kids. But it is crazy going to the gym and training hard and killing myself and then coming home and just having my daughter so excited to see me after being gone all day.
Singing a lullaby.
Yeah. It's like you go from this like just animal in the gym, like tough, everything's like hardcore.
And this little baby slipped in your hand.
Yeah. And then you get home and it's like, you're singing. Yeah.
It's like, it's so cute.
It is pretty crazy, but
man.
I enjoy it.
You mentioned the game of inches thing, and
Nsima's into inches, especially with the last few podcasts we've had.
Bruh. Hey, go check out a link for the penis pumps, guys. We're going to add some inches and girth to your dick. Back to the podcast. I'm being real. You mentioned the game of inches aspect of things, and you're a fighter that everyone knows could have easily been a champion. And it was literally small things. Like, for example, I think it was Jose Aldo when he like grabbed that cage at that moment in the fight. If he didn't grab that and you were able to take him down, knockout might have not happened there. And then the same thing with the Conor fight when I think you managed to take him down, and then something happened after you took him down. But like
I went for the submission. I got him the guillotine. Yeah,
exactly. And then he came back up and boom, right? Yeah. So those are like decisive small moments that if they changed, you might have had a belt, right? How after coming out of the UFC and now you're going to bare knuckle, how do you feel about that? Where everything, you were just like an inch away, or a moment away.
That's the name of the game, man. That's what can either make or break a fighter. We know it's a game of inches, and we know that on any given night, anybody can lose or win a fight, become a champion or lose the belt. And it's like, you have to understand that, recognize that, and almost be at one with that, because if that's something that you're so stressed about all the time, that's going to eat you alive, and it does bum me out a bit. Those fights, I didn't win. I was so close to becoming a UFC champion, but in my mind, I really try to tell myself everything happens for a reason. It just wasn't meant to be, and there's a reason for that somewhere, whether I know what it is now or I'm going to find out soon, but I just try to stay positive in that sense and tell myself that's the reason why, because sometimes, there's times where I'm just like so down. I'm like, how, like, why? Like, him grabbing the cage, if that was the deciding factor in that first fight, I don't know. Maybe he would have just beat my ass the rest of the fight after that. I don't know. But, maybe not. Or, the second fight with Aldo, when he hit me after the bell, you know, it really rocked me. And dude, every hit after that, I was just like, boom. You know, would that have changed something? Like, could I have beat him if that didn't happen? But, you know, I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe he would have just, like I said, beat my ass the rest of the fight. So there's those little things, and it's like, it splits the road. And if I went left, I would have been a champ. You know, I ended up going right, and I wasn't. If I would have went, you know, if something would have changed, would I be the champion? So you sit there and you start beating yourself up, and you start really like thinking about these things. And like I said, if you do, it eats you alive, man. You got to just move on with it, become one with it, and just realize everything happens for a reason.
Hey, it still ain't over, buddy.
It ain't.
No. You're throwing your hat back in the game. It's fascinating, like, to have, you know, a match against Conor McGreggor. He's like so iconic. Regardless of what you do from here on out, that might always be the stamp on your career, is just that you fought him, period. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You know, people years down the road, your kids, when they have kids, they'll be like, your grandpa, you know, he fought Conor McGregor.
That was a bloody fight.
It'll always be a thing. And even if you're to come back and win a title or something like that, which would be amazing, I still think that would be the focus from a lot of people. In the UFC, he fought Conor McGregor.
Yeah. It is, for sure. I mean, a lot of people, like casual fans, like, oh, you fought Conor McGregor? And it's like, yeah. I took it on 10 days notice, and I have to like explain the whole situation. Like, well, did you win? No. I beat him up though, but no, I lost the fight.
I used to go to powerlifting meets, and then I'd come back, and, you know, it was after I didn't do well. I missed my squats or something, and people are like, what happened?
Yeah, God, it's the worst.
I'm like, it was 1,000 fucking pounds. That's what happened. They're like, did you mess up your timing, or I was like, no, I was just too weak. I just wasn't strong enough for that day. It's like, you got to be real sharp to lift some of these weights, you know?
Yep.
God damn, cut me some slack. I'm sure people are probably asking you all the time. They probably still think you're in UFC, like, oh man, you still fighting? And you got to probably explain, I'm doing this other fight. Yeah. Bare knuckle fight. And then they probably think you're a lunatic.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Most people that I tell that, they're just like, oh, okay, cool. Good luck.
Family members are probably like, what's he doing?
Everyone thinks I'm nuts, but it is what it is. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to have fun with this. I'm excited to compete still. Like I said, I still feel like I'm in my prime, and this is, like I said, the biggest payday. So why not take advantage of the opportunity while I still can, and it makes sense to go out there, make money for my family, have fun competing, you know, maybe 1, 2, 3 more times if at the most, and just get back to all my other businesses, the hunting, the fishing, and doing all that. So
have you always been athletic? Because I remember, like, at the old gym, you know, watching you at Midtown, and Amadeo would have you do some drills and stuff like that. I was always like everybody went through the drills and everybody looked like they knew what they were doing. But when you went, I was always like, oh, fuck. Have you always been explosive and athletic?
Yeah. I mean, I was actually a swimmer at about 4 years old. That was the first sport I ever did, competitive swimming. And then my dad was like, this isn't burning enough calories. We need to get this guy in something else. So he started me off in wrestling at 5, and I, you know, wrestled I didn't take a year off from 5 all the way up through college. Not a single
shit. He's one of those guys.
Yeah.
And hang on to your leg for 6 hours. Not going to give up.
Yep. And there was a few times I wanted to play other sports. Like, I did some other sports. I played water polo for 4 years, which was like right before wrestling season. So I used it to like get in shape, and then jumped into that. But, you know, I wanted to play baseball. I wanted to do, you know, some more team sports. And my dad always said baseball's for pussies. And I couldn't play baseball. So wrestling was it, you know.
It's kind of right.
But so, oh man.
That's the way it was in my house too. Anything I wanted to do, my brothers were like, that's stupid.
Yeah.
You know, they wanted me to play football or whatever.
And my ass kicked a ball around.
Yeah, anytime I played soccer, all my uncles would be like, that's a pussy sport. You gotta go play football.
All Americans always said that shit to me. Like, why aren't you playing football? Because my mom doesn't want me getting a fucking concussion.
And nobody wants to run either. That's the truth. Yeah. Right? Everybody wants to avoid running.
I know Amadeo thinks I'm a pussy too. Because he played football. I'm curious, man, because Mark mentioned something about how, like, everyone's like, oh, he fought Conor. But for you personally, what do you think so far in your career, what was your personal favorite fight? Because
oh man,
people think that Aldo 2 fight was fucking amazing, and it was.
That was my hardest fight, hands down, my hardest fight. I always say that fight probably took about 10 years off of my life.
Whoa, seriously?
Probably. Like that was, I got back. So, fought 5 hard rounds with him. We went from the fight, did all the media, the press conference and stuff. And I hobbled up to my hotel room. It was like 6 a.m. We looked out the window and the sun was already coming up. Cause we fought, because of the time change, we fought at like 10 or 11 p.m. at night there in Brazil.
Damn.
And so, it was just crazy, man. I remember hobbling up and just laying in bed and like propping my feet up. My legs were just all swollen. I peed blood that night and just like head was just going, whoa, whoa, whoa. Hands hurt. Like it was the most pain I've ever been in from any fight. And I just remember taking some like ibuprofen or whatever. And we ordered a pizza and just sat in the room, me and my wife, and just ate pizza and just... like, fuck, that's over, man. We didn't get it, but holy shit, what a night, you know? And so I'd say it's definitely not my favorite fight, but that's definitely one of the fights that stand out the most to me in my career. I'd say my favorite fight, and it sucks because it was a really good buddy of mine, but I feel like my best performance, and I felt just good all around, was Guida. And the preparation for that fight was really good. Leading up to that camp, I felt good, and just was able to really implement the game plan that we had in place, and ended up getting the knockout. Was the first person, I think, to knock him out. And, as far as performance wise, that was my favorite fight. But like I said, it sucks because we're good buddies. We're actually business partners now.
Oh, shit.
He does Gills and Thrills and we do Fins and Feathers. So
does he ever bring that shit up?
No, we don't talk about it. No.
I picture you guys occasionally trying to kill each other too.
No. Or you have a disagreement and you're just like, hey, hold on, pull up that tape real quick.
Clay's like the nicest guy in the world, man. That guy's got a heart of gold, and he'd give you the shirt off his back if you needed it any time. So he's a good guy. And it was sad, man. That night he came back into our locker room after the fight and brought us, all of us his walkout shirts, and like had tears in his eyes and was like, it was tough, man. It was emotionally probably the toughest fight that I had. But like I said, it just made us, I think, better friends here now. So
do you think that it would be wise for like a lot of people to explore like a combat sport in some way, like even just the preparation for it, the training, the sparring, like not trying to go UFC or not trying to like, which you wouldn't be able to anyway, but not trying to, push into like the actual sport of it. But do you think it'd be a good idea? I mean, it must turn you inside out in some ways.
I think it's great. And I tried to encourage people to do it. It's a great workout. Punching a bag, even taking a kickboxing class, how much stress relief that is, just punching something, especially something that's not going to punch you back, and it's a insane workout. Anyone that's actually done it after was like, holy hell, I was so tired, or grappling, jiu-jitsu classes, wrestling, stuff that it's different than your standard, just go to the gym, run on the treadmill, lift some weights and go home. It's different. It's completely different. So, I encourage people to get in there and try it. Most people that do it fall in love with it. And it's just a great way to stay healthy and fit and just switch it up from the normal routine of gym life.
It kind of seems like the underlying thing that's kind of behind everything is like a fight, either like getting into a fight, like facing a confrontation, or trying to figure out how to like wiggle your way out of one, or to maneuver your way around one, whether it's like a physical confrontation or it's just in like everyday life of not wanting to like take on a confrontation. Have you kind of found that it's assisted you in just being like maybe just super straightforward with people?
100%. And talking about this reminds me of Dan Gable's quote, "Once you've wrestled, everything in life is easy." And I've heard that quote since I was young in this sport. And obviously at the time it doesn't make sense because, you're a kid, your life is easy, but
you're like, wrestling's easy and fun. What's he talking about?
Yeah. going through college, after graduating, jumping in the fight game, you know, having to figure out bills and, you know, car payments and cell phone bills and, you know, making sure, basically being an adult and having responsibilities and starting a family and going through all that. It's like, you look back at that quote and you're like, damn, like, he's right. Like, getting in a lot of these tough situations where I've been in them, and I've had other friends and like family members that get in those same positions and crack and crumble and fall apart. And it's like, yeah, it's not fun. It's difficult, but it's not something that I would feel like I'd break over. And I feel like it helps push through those hard times. So I think, and that could be anything from jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, boxing. It doesn't have to be wrestling, but I think pushing yourself to those mental and physical limits and really testing yourself and like teaching your body and your mind that, God, I can actually go a little bit further than I thought and go through these tough times and still survive and live. It transfers over into life too. And I think it's good. I think it's good for anybody to go through that stuff.
You know, Chad, Amadeo, I'm curious about you guys' thoughts on this. Do you have kids? Amadeo, do you have kids?
Yeah, I have one.
You have one? Okay,
Yeah.
Perfect. I started jiu-jitsu 6 years ago. And I mean, before that, I didn't really get into fights because people look at me. I'm a big black dude, so not really going to try anything. But it's not like I knew how to defend myself. So if somebody did try to fight me, I'd be like, I'd probably sprint away. But I'm not even looking for fights these days either. But jiu-jitsu has been I'm fucking addicted to it. And just also knowing that I could defend myself in a confrontation, I feel confident in that.
Yeah.
Now, for people who have kids, right? What would you guys suggest would be the martial art that maybe they should start their kids in if they did? Like, where would you maybe have them start?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think wrestling for me. I'd like to get my daughters into wrestling or jits. I think anything grappling, body awareness, being able to understand body movement is going to be key, especially with defending themselves against somebody, you know, that's trying to attack them or, you know, whatever. But I definitely want my daughters to get in some type of martial arts. I'll probably let them choose if it's something that they feel like they can make that decision on. If not, I'll probably at least start them off in wrestling.
Okay.
What do you think, sorry to cut you off, like injury-wise, which one do you think is less injuries, wrestling or jiu-jitsu?
Probably jiu-jitsu. I think jiu-jitsu is typically a little bit slower paced, a little bit more, I guess, like a chess. I guess more of like a chess match, you know, depending. I mean, I don't grapple like that, but most people, would you say it's kind of a slower pace? You're thinking, you're you know,
Methodical.
That's the word.
Trying to maybe work with each other.
Yeah, where wrestling, a lot of the times it's like boom, 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 just.
And then when wrestlers do no-gi, they're nightmarish.
Yeah, that's all I do is no-gi. That's what I'm talking about. Like when I grapple, I'm trying to go balls to the wall.
Yeah.
So,
I would imagine it's probably easier to make a wrestler jiu-jitsu
Oh yeah,
than it is to make a jiu-jitsu grappler a wrestler.
When a wrestler comes to jiu-jitsu, you can tell. Like you can just tell by the way they move. I spar with a lot of guys who are former wrestlers or who wrestle and do jiu-jitsu. Like our boy Josh Settlage. When Josh was a white belt and he came into doing jiu-jitsu, he already was fucking people up. Like he was fucking blue belts up because of just his wrestling background. And then because he's a grappler, picks it up so quick. But I mean, I think as an adult, to pick up wrestling is much harder than knowing wrestling as a kid. Like jiu-jitsu, people can't pick up wrestling like wrestlers can pick up jiu-jitsu.
And some people might not just understand aggression, you know? A lot of times they do. A lot of times they have a decent understanding of it. And being like overly aggressive is not going to help you necessarily in wrestling. And it's not necessarily going to help. It's probably going to hurt you somewhat in jiu-jitsu. But you do need to be like ready to like go. Like it is a fight, right?
Yeah.
And so people with the wrestling background, they at least have that coming in, right?
Yep. Yeah, and I think wrestling, at least for me, I was taught like, you know when it's go time, you know when it's time to save energy, you know when it's time to kind of be a little bit more relaxed, and then you know when it's like balls to the wall. And I think wrestling teaches you that body awareness of knowing like in certain instances, like you have to go 100% because if you half-ass it, you're going to get pinned or you're going to get caught. So I think it definitely trains you in that sense.
I think one thing that I really do like about jiu-jitsu or martial arts is that they have a belt system for young kids. And it's like, there's always a next level, you know, like that process that they have to go through to keep getting better. Oh,
Yeah,
that's like a good thing.
I never
A
thought
lot
of
of
that,
other
but yeah.
sports don't have.
Yeah, wrestling doesn't have anything like
Yeah.
rankings in any sense, right?
No, it's all
Yeah.
weight classes. So you might get, and this was always a benefit for me, is I was always small for my age. And so I would be usually wrestling guys that were a year or two younger than me because I was would that make sense? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, I was just small for my weight. I was 80 pounds my freshman year in high school. Like I was a tiny little guy. Yeah. Yeah. So I was actually JV. I didn't even, because 103s was the smallest weight class. And we had, I think, a senior on our team that was cutting down to 103. So yeah, I put in so much time in the gym for freshman year and sophomore year. That's when I really started taking supplements. I think I started taking creatine and really focusing on protein and, your carbohydrates and that's where it all kind of began for me. And then I actually became obsessed with lifting weights and fell in love with it.
Check that out.
Oh yeah. That was me back in the day. 42 pounds right there.
Sick.
Hell yeah.
5 years old.
The other kid's in like jean shorts.
Yeah.
Sick.
Look at that.
Stonewashed.
That is dope.
Oh yeah. But yeah, man, I ended
Has
up,
that ever been a detriment? Because sometimes we hear that. We sometimes hear like guys that are holding on to extra muscle, they might be more winded. Have you ever found or
Oh, man,
lose flexibility or anything like that?
I've never been flexible, so that's out the window from day one.
Has that ever been a limiting factor for you think?
Not in wrestling. Maybe in fighting, yeah, because of kicking and stuff like that. It's hard for me to get anything up high. But yeah, in wrestling, I always felt good being stiff and strong as hell. I could just muscle people and quick too, just staying quick, stiff, and strong.
Yeah, wrestlers are interesting because like you watch them sometimes walk around and it might walk around all weird.
Dan Hindo just.
But yeah, then they'll just like totally destroy people. You're like, how did this guy able to move like
And
that?
the way that they move, like you think that because they're
feet
so
are pointed
stiff,
out and they kind of waddle around and bam, you're like, holy fuck.
yeah, it's weird. Like because of the way they walk, you're like, oh, he's gonna be stiff, and then they fucking do circles around you and shit.
Yeah.
They have that tenacity. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think everything's just so tight from, grappling, wrestling. It's the same as lifting. Everything's squeezing and tight always. So it's like that builds that strength. And I think everything just gets so tight that it doesn't want to move, It's like, but it works. I mean, you get in there and you can just muscle a dude around. And yeah, I've always liked being strong. That was something I always focused on, even through college, just, trying to hit the weights as much as I could. Get as strong as I possibly can for my weight. And I felt good. My senior year actually jumped up because I did way too much weight cutting down to 125s my first couple years and just about killed myself. I ended up becoming an All-American for the first time at 125s. But man, cutting that weight, weighing in once a week, sometimes twice a week, and having to wrestle an hour after making weight, dude, it was like brutal. And so the next year, my coaches wanted me to just go up to 133s, 132s or 133s. And so beginning of the year, I started cutting, and I was still going to have to cut like 20 pounds. And I was like, you know what? I went in, I had a meeting with them and said, it's my senior year. I was like, I would really like to go up to 141s, especially if I'm going to be fighting after this. And the lowest weight class at that time was 145s. So I'm going to be fighting 145s. I might as well get used to, dealing with people a little bit bigger than me. So my coaches were like, Sammy Henson and John Azevedo, and they're like, look, we don't advise this. Like, we think you'll do better at 33s, but if it's something, we saw how bad you killed yourself the last 2 years trying to cut to 25s, and as long as they're like, just so you know, if you start losing to guys that are bigger than you later in the season just because they're bigger, not that they're better, you're not going to cut back down. And so I'm like, fine. And I ended up going undefeated the entire season.
Oh, nice.
My only loss was in the NCAA finals. And so it was the best season I ever had in my whole life.
Yeah.
And looking back, I'm like, I wish I would have known that.
Yeah.
I would have not cut so much weight my entire high school career and college career, but that's one of those things.
That Dan Gable quote makes a lot of sense now, because now I think of I played soccer for 16 years, but that shit, you just go on a field and you run. You don't have to worry about cutting weight, but the process of weight cutting and feeling like shit as a young athlete, the grit aspect of things, you don't get that in other sports.
And the fact that the rest of the toughest part is that you have an hour. So like for dual meets, you cut all that weight.
Yeah.
You weigh in and you're like I feel like shit, but I have to figure it out in my mind and push through that because my opponent's sitting next to me in 1 hour and the whistle's blowing and I'm going. So, you know, you got to push through that shitty feeling, push through that pain and just figure out how to win, you know?
Yeah, wrestling might be almost a little bit like bodybuilding where you have to think about it even when you go home. You got to think about it afterwards. And you got to think about like recovery and stuff too. I mean, not that other sports don't have a physical demand, but it's mainly just your own body. You know, football, you're making a lot of contact, so that's another tough one to recover from. But some things like basketball and soccer, there's more running. Like you do make contact with other people, but wrestling, I mean, you see it in the muscle mass that a lot of the grapplers have. They have it even without lifting weights. So obviously there's some muscle breakdown that's going on during 100%. Those sessions.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and it's a grind. I remember in high school and I don't know, looking back on this, I don't know if I'm sure most high school wrestling teams still do this, but we have a small wrestling room and a big heater up on the ceiling. Whoa. And it was always like 90 plus degrees, 100 degrees in there. And that's how we practiced every day. And
kids be fainting?
Very rarely, but it did happen sometimes. Very rarely. But dude, like at the end of practice, it would be like somebody dumped buckets of water on the mats. Like everybody's sweating so much. I would lose like 6-7 pounds of water weight in an hour practice. And I don't know, like I remember our coaches doing it and telling us at the time because it helps you cut weight, you know, so it's just going to help you lose more weight during that practice. But it's like, is that something they also did to make us mentally tough? I'm guessing that's probably something like pushing through, being uncomfortable.
Did you guys know about electrolytes back then? I'm just curious, like, because like these kids are sweating, nutrition. Like, did you guys do fuck with that?
No, I didn't. Not in high school.
Goddamn.
There was a lot of stuff. Looking back now, I wish I knew more about, you know, like cutting weight in general. I knew nothing. You know, I would just starve myself, not drink, and just eat something that sounded good that I knew didn't weigh very much. So the nutrition factor of it was garbage, you know? And it's like, God, I feel like I could have done so much better with somebody in my ear that actually knew what they were doing or what they were talking about and teaching me that stuff. I didn't have, you know, my dad didn't know anything about nutrition or dieting or cutting weight or, you know, it's just something that was so new to all of us. And I didn't start cutting weight till my sophomore year in high school. So, you know, from 5 all the way up to sophomore year, whatever I weighed is what I wrestled. And then that's where it all started.
What you got, Amadeo?
No, I'm just thinking like nobody really knew about this stuff when we were in high school. Yeah, this is so new. It's like the last decade, nutrition, sports nutrition specifically, like the electrolytes, like nobody knew about this 10 years ago, you know? But now kids nowadays, they're not allowed to cut weight like that. I don't think in California they have to
percentages and stuff.
They have to weigh like that weight right before the match.
Sissies.
So
come on, come on with all these rules. Come on with all these rules.
Toughen them up.
You can't soccer kick the guy that's on the ground. I mean, what are all these rules you got going on here?
In the head.
Yeah, right. Ridiculous. How do you eat currently? I know we'll get into the carnivore stuff in a little bit, but what do you guys got going on now for nutrition?
So for this training camp, I've been doing a pretty strict diet. It's basically all whole foods, and just really had a team of nutritionists to kind of put all this together based on my weight, my size, my activity that I'm pumping out per day, and basically just and goal, you know? And so for me, it's mostly wild game. I'm doing some beef and chicken that's mixed in there too. I have a beef company, American Almond Beef, so I get to use a lot of my own beef. And then lots of fruits, some veggies, and the veggies that I'm typically sticking to are like your cucumbers. I do a little bit of broccoli. I'm not really a broccoli fan, but I eat it just kind of to fill my gut a bit. Sometimes green beans. And then I also do potatoes, throwing in some potatoes, sweet potatoes in there. Had some white rice, post-workout type stuff for spiking insulin, and then also brown rice mixed in as well. So it's all very bland, very, you know, clean type stuff, but it's helping me. I'm leaning out, just trying to get my weight down and feel good doing it. Not so much of a starve all at the end and then, really have to cut a ton of water weight. I'll probably still have to cut about 10 pounds of water weight that last week, I'm guessing. But I do. And then fats also, I miss the fats there too. So fats are avocado, I'm using olive oil, and then animal fats. So whatever the beef has, most wild game doesn't have a ton. So I usually mix in the avocados or the olive oil with the wild game stuff.
What's this beef company about?
So American Almond Beef. So you guys know I hunt a ton.
Yeah.
And I get hit up over the last probably 8 years of people like, hey, I love your hunting stuff. Can you sell me some of that wild game? I want to try some elk. I want to try some venison. And legally you can't sell wild game. I could give it out, but you have
to be like a distributor or something, right?
No, you just can't legally sell wild game. So like any elk that you see is all farm raised. It's still elk, but it's not wild.
So like anything you order on the internet's not wild.
No.
Oh, okay. I understand now.
So I was like, okay, I can't sell wild game, but what can I do that kind of is the closest thing to it? I want to create a healthy beef company that there's no corn, no soy that we feed, no antibiotics, no hormones. They're pasture raised, and then the last 100 to 150 days, we feed them a very high octane blend of almonds, like almond byproducts. So like the whole, we grind that up. The bran off of brown,
these are some fancy
rice.
cows.
Oh yeah. Oh, this is super. The marbling is unbelievable on this stuff. It's the fat is like a real buttery, like nutty flavor. But we got prunes. We got we do like an alfalfa hay. We do. It's just this blend, and it's on that website. If you pull it up, there's a picture of one of our hands holding the actual feed. If you go to
they eat better than America.
That's the mix right there. That's what they're eating, and it's all just super high in fat, high in protein, high in fiber, high in carbohydrates. So these cows are just getting tons of nutrients, good healthy nutrients for the last 100 to 150 days of their life after being pasture raised.
I've never had almond before. Right, I've had beef.
That's the feed.
I had beef that was fed olives, and that was really good. Well, so this is probably amazing.
Yeah, and like I said, they're mostly pasture raised their whole life, but we just finish them off. Where most, like you think, like Harris Ranch, where they finish them off on just corn, corn and soy.
Right.
And so this is just the finish off process. So it's healthy from start to finish.
Yeah.
And so we created this company, me and some of my buddies that launched this. This is our first year, actually. We just launched this at the beginning of the year. So, but yeah, we wanted something that as healthy and as close to wild game as possible without it being wild game, because now we can sell it. It was kind of the thought behind it.
So you can't, can you purchase elk or anything, or are you just purchasing beef?
On our website, it's just beef.
Gotcha.
Yep, just beef. And it's like I said, our angle on that is just that it's finished off on a really high octane, healthy blend, no hormones, no antibiotics, no soy, no corn. So, and it's direct to consumer. So if people don't want to go to the grocery store, they just go on our website. They can go to the shopping cart, put in whatever steaks, cuts, ground, whatever they want, roast, and it'll show up frozen on their doorstep.
Did you know much about farming beforehand? Obviously, you know a lot about hunting and animals and stuff.
Yeah,
but farming is a completely different venture, right?
It is. Yeah. I did grow up in a small farming town, Hanford, in the Valley here in California. So I've been around it my whole life, but it's never been anything like I've been hands-on with, which is good. A couple of my business partners have done that their whole life. So we got that side of it. Me and my buddy Chad Belding, who has a hunting show on Outdoor Channel, The Foul Life. We're kind of, I guess, the spokesmen of it. We have the social media presence that we're trying to just get it out there. And then we have the two guys that have done all the farming and cool. all that type of stuff. So we got the A team, or I guess I already mentioned them. We got Merlot, who owns the almond. He's like one of the biggest almond growers here in Northern California.
Whoa.
So we get a lot of the almonds from his farms. So it all works, man. We got a team together and we created this company. And
did you learn some of this, or maybe just pick some of this up by watching Urijah Faber and like what he's created with his businesses and stuff? Because it seems like a lot of you guys that have been around him are very business minded.
Yeah, 100%, man. Faber has always been a huge inspiration for me as far as business goes. He's always got his hands in a million things, and I feel like lately that's kind of how I've been. We also started a wild game cookbook and rub company. We have 10 different rubs, like seasonings.
Plug it. Where can people get it?
Theproviderlife.com, and it's called The Provider. So we just launched the book. We teamed up with
Damn, send some rub here, buddy.
Yeah, I'll send you guys some. I'll send you some cookbooks too. You guys can check them out.
Hey, I need that shit.
Amadeo, you don't bring these things up to me. I mean, you know how much meat I eat? You can't bring up the rub?
I'll get you guys. I'll get you a package.
I tagged you in the post.
I'll send you a package of beef, the rubs, and some cookbooks. How about that?
Hey.
Very great.
Yeah, just let me know what you think. But yeah, we launched that. We teamed up with Ben Bella. It's a national publishing company, and they helped us put this whole thing together. Holy crap, was that a lot of work, man! I never would have thought that I'd be doing any type of book. Especially, cookbook, but
You're going to be a star on Pinterest.
Dude.
It's going to be sick.
we did like 9 days straight of 10-hour days of cooking, photos, cleaning, eating, and like repeat, just all that.
You're like, I'll take a fight any day over this.
Yeah, it was so much work. But I think it turned out well. I like it. There's a lot of hunting stories from over the years of my life, same with Chad Belding. Tips and tricks in the field. There's even some training stuff that I put in there, training techniques and tips and stuff like that. So,
how long have you been into hunting, by the way? Like, has it been something you've done all whole life?
Yeah, my dad got me into it when I was little. I remember following him around through the woods when I was a little kid. But yeah, we've always been into living off the land, and wild game's always been probably the majority of the meat we've consumed in our house growing up. And then now, even with my family, I'd say it's probably 80% of what we eat, 85%. I enjoy it. I think I enjoy, obviously I enjoy the health aspects to it, but the whole process. Like I enjoy hunting. I love fishing, putting in the work, the skill sets to learn how to use my bow, my rifles, and then having to get out there and put game plans together on finding a target animal and like sneaking in on it, using the wind and like not being seen, and then actually making it happen. And then once that happens, you have all this fresh, free range, organic meat to live off for however long, months.
Could you imagine like you're on a hunt and you blow it, and the animal gets away. Yeah. Well, nowadays it happens when you're like, oh, fuck it, let's go home and like maybe drink some beer in the truck on the way home and like go have a fucking cheeseburger from In-N-Out or something, right? On your drive home. But years ago and years and years ago, like you wouldn't have that. You would have had to have gotten the shot. Otherwise you'd be really hungry.
Oh yeah. Yep.
All right. So probably an ignorant question, but for someone who's never hunted before, what, like, let's say someone wants to get into doing some hunting, maybe hunting an elk, or I don't know what the basic thing someone would hunt is, but what are the financials on hunting? Because I feel like you need some shit. Like,
it can be expensive. And so going back to the first business that I started, Fins and Feathers, that's kind of what our business model is. We take a lot of first-time hunters, people that have never done it before. They'll email us like, hey, what do I need to do to get started? And we steer them in the direction of getting their hunter safety course done. Once they get a license and their hunter safety course done, then we can book them on a trip. We have a bunch of different types of trips that range in price from, a wild pig hunt that, $1,400, and it's obviously it's a little bit more expensive than just buying a pig from the farm, but it's an experience. We're teaching you how to do it, and it's all free range organic, so that obviously makes it a little bit more expensive too. But you're looking at killing a 200 to 300 pound pig, and that's a lot of pork to load the freezer up with. So but yeah, all the way up to elk. We have elk hunts that some of that stuff can be pretty pricey, but
Fins and Feathers Club?
Fins and Feathers. Fins and Feathers spelt with Z's.
Ah, okay.
F-I-N-Z.
PowerProject family, how's it going? We talk about sleep all the time on this podcast. That's why we partnered with 8 Sleep mattresses. Now, this mattress is the Tesla of sleep. It's the Tesla of beds. Its technology tracks your heart rate variability. It changes its own temperature based off the way you sleep so that you get better sleep every single night. It is quite literally insane. Check them out. Andrew, how do they get it?
Yes, and before I do that, I wanted to let you guys know that you can actually set the bed to wake you up silently silently. I know that sounds weird, but actually the bed starts vibrating around your head and it doesn't wake up the entire household the way my phone used to do back in the day. So now I just kind of have the bed wake me up silently, and it's amazing. You guys got to head over to 8sleep.com/PowerProject. That's EIGHT sleep.com/PowerProject. When you guys go there, you'll see a banner across the top saying that you're going to receive $150 off automatically. So again, that's 8sleep.com/PowerProject to receive $150 off your Pod Pro cover or your Pod Pro cover and mattress combo. Links to them down in the description as well as the podcast show notes. Let's get back to the podcast.
What was the carnivore diet like for you? Because you mentioned earlier, I think that you did it for like 3 or 4 months straight.
Yeah, I did 4 months straight, and it was basically the reason. I mean, you were a big motivator for that, honestly.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, you were. I follow you on Instagram. I see all your meals, and I see when you go through the diet, and it's, dude, there's so many times I'm like, fuck, that looks so good. I wouldn't mind this diet, you know? And so, but I have psoriasis. I've had psoriasis. Hey, we talked about it last time on the podcast, and it's been something I've struggled with my whole life. There it is. So this
was psoriasis like a virus?
No, it's an autoimmune disease.
Okay.
It's basically what happens is that part of the skin, like we all have skin cells that die and just shut off. And those skin cells there just reproduce so fast that it doesn't have time to like shed off like normal. So it just builds up plaques is what they call it, just dead skin. And so it just gets super dry, super itchy, cracks, it bleeds. And I've struggled with this my whole life. It's a hereditary thing. My uncle has it.
You know, as an adult and as somebody who's well accomplished, you know, it's like, all right, well, my fucking legs are red. What was it like as a kid?
Oh man, I'd always be itching them, and I didn't know
real
what it was.
embarrassing.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I didn't know.
Get it on their face and stuff too.
No, not on my face. It started off on my shins as a kid, and that's the only place that I had it for a long time. But it just like over the years, just kind of got bigger and bigger and bigger. So at first, it started off. It was only like a little patch like that on one shin, and then it ended up going from ankle like that all the way up to my knee. And it switched over to the other side and started going ankle to knee on that side. And then in college, I started getting on my scalp, my ears, and then just over the years, it's just kind of starting to spread all over. I got my elbows now, and so it's just something that I was like at this point, I'm like, I got to figure out something new. You know, I've taken different medications, you know, like basically over the counter, like creams or even prescription type creams, and yeah, they help, but it's never been anything that's like really taken it away. And what is this I'm putting on myself? Like, I don't even know what the hell this shit is. So I'm like, there's got to be something else. So seeing you know, listening to Rogan, you know, talking to Dr. Sean Baker and Paul
Saladino.
Yeah, yep. Saladino, Dr. Saladino, and just getting their perspective on the thing, on the situation. I ended up saying, okay, I'm going to do this for 4 months. And basically, it's going to be an elimination diet. What is causing? Is there something that I'm eating that's screwing up my gut, that's inflaming this? Because they say a lot of autoimmune diseases come from the gut and bacteria and all that. So I'm like, all right, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to try this. So jumped right into it, full bore. Like after that trip, that was a hunt. I got back from the hunt and I looked at myself and I was just like, are you kidding me?
It's crazy. For people who don't have a visual, it kind of looks like poison ivy or something like that. Like there's some swelling and a lot of dry skin, and it looks like blistery.
So, and then
does it hurt?
Yeah,
it's like irritated. Huh? Yeah, irritated. It looks like it would be like irritated. Yeah.
So I jumped right in, and about 2 weeks, I think it was 2 weeks. I did like basically a before and after of being on the diet, and I don't know if you can see it. I think it's on this one. Yeah. So that's already like 2 weeks. I think is what I said on there. I can't remember, but it wasn't very long into it.
And then we got to also say that some of that probably has to do with you're off your feet a little bit more. You weren't still on the hunt. Like the hunt might have aggravated it, right?
Yeah, and that's what I was telling you earlier. I think one of the main things I've noticed that inflames it the most is lack of sleep. So, you know, 8 hour, like less than 8 hours, like 6 hours, 4 to 6 hours, which I typically get on these hunts, you know, because you're getting up before the sun comes up. And, you know, sometimes, you know, you go to bed late after harvesting something in the evening, whatever. So, you know, you're getting 4 hours of sleep. You go 4 or 5 days of that, and I come home from a hunt, and it's really inflamed.
Yeah. It's a huge difference, though. I mean,
it's incredible, the difference. I mean, it looks like after 2 weeks, it looks like it's gone.
Yeah, it helped. And so my thought was this, like, I'm going to try this for, you know, a month. And if nothing's changing with my psoriasis, I'll probably just go back to eating how I did before. But like 2 weeks in, I was like, oh, this is obviously doing something. And so I stuck with it. I did it for 4 months straight, and I felt really good. You know, the first week I felt crappy. I think they call that the keto flu is what it, and you, not crappy. You just feel, for me, I just felt unmotivated. I just felt lazy and tired.
Did you have electrolytes at that time? Because for a lot of people, that makes a difference.
It dumps water out of your system the first couple of days.
Maybe.
And you lose like 5, anywhere between 4 or 5 pounds, which people are used to having that extra like little fluff on them.
Yeah.
And when it's gone, it just kind of does make you feel drained. And you go to like lift or something and you notice that you shake with weights that are a lot lighter than normal, and you're like, I don't understand what's going on. Then you kind of just feel like shit for a little bit.
Yep. So that was
exactly what he's talking about.
Week and a half. I didn't know that. And see, I probably should have done a little bit more research on that, because I went on Rogan's podcast and he was saying there's supplements that will help with that that I didn't know about. And I looking back, or if I do that hardcore again like that, I probably would look into that. Maybe I can just hit you up and see what you think. But
absolutely, yeah, just salting your food, or like we have a new hydration product that just came out, and we've been working on that for a long time. But a lot of these hydration products can help. We've been with a company called Element for quite some time. They have a great product. Yeah. And it's just a way to add some salt, potassium, magnesium, calcium to your diet, where otherwise you're kind of losing it when you don't have carbs in your system. Yeah. The carbohydrates can really help hydrate the muscles, and when that's absent, you get rid of that, or even just getting rid of junk in general that you're eating. Your body's not going to hold as much water, so you'll feel fatigued.
Yeah, and I did notice that for, like I said, a week and a half, and then but I leaned out big time. Like, it's crazy how much I leaned out in just like a month. I was like, man, this is good. I feel good now. My body's obviously responding well to it. My psoriasis is doing better. So I was like, I'm just going to do it for 4 months. I did it for 4 months. And then after that, Dr. Sean was saying basically like, hey, just start adding stuff in and just see. He's like, you don't need to stay on that strict of a carnivore diet for the rest of your life. You don't, it's not, you're not doing it for health reasons. You're doing it for psoriasis, basically, to see what inflames it. So I started adding things back in. I tried, some rice. I add some rice back in with some sushi, and that didn't seem to do much. And I did a little bit of potatoes. The nightshades can be tricky there. Like I noticed peppers and tomatoes really bug it, but for whatever reason.
What a great thing to know, though, right?
Yeah.
Like, now you know, and you can be like, I don't mind paying the price of eating some pizza tonight or whatever it is,
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's not like I'm going to be on the toilet crapping my brains out. I just have to deal with a little bit of a skin irritation.
So right here, you're saying it's 3 months into the diet.
Yeah.
Fucking hands are so fast.
That was right.
Yeah, bro.
I think that was right at the beginning of us starting to train again, huh? For at least when it was supposed to be in October.
It just looks like just a little jab, but that would hurt so bad.
But yeah, man, I was feeling good. Like I said, I was lean, felt light and fast, and it was good. I'm normally having to eat like every hour to 2 hours.
Shit, let's watch that. Play that back.
Yeah, it's just I got it on loop.
Yeah. I want you guys to pay attention to his feet. It's crazy. Okay. Like, the arms are flying, and that's the thing everyone looks at, but the balance that it takes to throw bombs like that and to throw shots like that real quickly is it's unbelievable, the amount of athleticism. Like, you don't think about it.
The feet, I notice it big time when my legs are not in condition shape.
Yeah, watch this.
Jesus.
If you were to slow that down, you wouldn't really find him on the ground that much. And that was Tyson when Tyson was in his prime. Yeah. He was just leaping across the ring, zigzagging on people. Like, I think it's a shame that Tyson will never get the credit as the athlete that he was. He's one of the greatest athletes of all time, but because he had that kind of stocky build and he just knocked people out, I think everyone just thought he was like explosive. But
he was super athletic. You see those shadow boxing videos with him, like,
even now he can still move.
Or just move. Oh yeah.
It wasn't even steps. It was like literally his feet like hopping from around.
Yeah, like little floating things. You're like, what the hell?
I think they did a video of it with that last fight he did on the a year ago or whatever.
With that, were you about to say something?
No, go.
I'm just curious. With that being said, when we were talking out there, I was asking you about if you still like do grappling. You're like, you've been doing grappling all your life, but boxing, apparently, like, that's what you really, really like now. So as far as boxers are concerned, Are there any boxers that you look at and you watch? And you're
Canelo,
like,
man, I love watching Canelo. I've been for the last year. Like when I run, I'll do a 5-mile run. I'll just put Canelo videos on the treadmill, and I just zone out, and I'm just like watching nonstop, studying. His style to me is like it's beautiful. His power, his speed, his defense, his offense, like everything about it is like that's that obsession we were talking about. And it's I had that with wrestling. I got that about sophomore year in high school. Up until that, I did it. It was fun, but it was like my dad. I just did it because my dad wanted me to do it, and then that was normal. But I got that obsession sophomore year in high school, and I was doing so much extra stuff on my own, and I made huge gains, and ended up being a state placer that year. From 80 pounds on JV to a state placer the next year, and just. That obsession stayed with me through high school, jumped into college, and then, you start winding down from your wrestling career to now mixed martial arts. I jumped right in the next day after I graduated, and you get that new obsession. And it's like MMA is the new thing. And it's like you start watching all these different fighters. I used to watch Faber all the time, Anderson Silva, like all these guys, and you see their techniques and you like pick and choose, and you just like add it to the repertoire, and just study it and love it. And you make huge gains. And for me now, I finished that MMA obsession, and now boxing for me right now is that new, it's new. It's, I love watching Canelo. I love his movements. I try to emulate that. Tyson too. I absolutely love Tyson stuff.
Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Anderson Silva, he did a couple boxing matches more recently, right? And he did really well, right?
Yeah. Who did he fight? Chavez? Was it Chavez?
Yeah. I think did he fight?
Yeah.
I think he won.
He did. Yeah. He knocked him out, I think.
I've never seen anything like Anderson Silva. As long as the UFC's been around, I've never seen anyone. I guess the biggest, it wasn't even a change because it happened so early, but Hoist being in, like, that was watching Hoist Gracie, what he was able to do to people because they just never seen anything like it before. Yeah. And then watching Anderson
with his striking
decades later, just doing weird stuff. You're like, I don't understand what this guy's doing to people.
He did fight Chavez Jr.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What? That's a legit boxer too.
Yeah.
That's not a celebrity.
Anderson Silva's like 42 years old or something like that, or 44.
Holy shit, dude. I didn't know he fought him.
Yeah, this was recent. I don't think it was that long ago.
I got to start paying attention to stuff.
The Spider.
I didn't know either, man.
I feel like it kind of went under the radar. Like I didn't see a lot of build up to it. And
had I known he was gonna, because like you see like the stuff on like with Jake Paul and stuff, he's kind of doing like celebrity type stuff.
Yeah,
that's a legit boxer.
Yeah,
holy shit, that's fucking awesome. Let's fast forward this.
I want to say it was on the same night as like another one of those celebrity boxers.
Yeah, look at Anderson, how smooth he is.
Yeah, he looks like a good boxer. Yeah,
I'm gonna go back and watch this whole fight.
I think Anderson Silva or maybe some other people were talking about like the Paul brothers, and they're like, I don't hear anybody mentioning Anderson Silva's name.
No,
I know.
Fuck no.
Like there's probably a reason.
Yeah,
or even Mike Rashid. Mike Rashid has a long history of boxing. He's been boxing since he was a kid.
Yeah.
And he got back into it more recently, and he's been looking unreal. But you don't hear the YouTubers talking about Mike Rashid. They don't want to mess with that.
I doubt you think too much about it, but what do you even think about that? The Jake Pauls and that type of boxing.
I mean, they're making money. Good for them.
Okay.
I do think Jake's the younger one, right?
Jake's the younger one.
Yeah, he's an athlete. Bottom line, yeah, he's a YouTube guy, but that's what made him. Well, that's what made his name famous. But I mean, they used to wrestle. I mean, they've been boxing and doing athletic stuff most of their life. It's not like he was just some like YouTube nerd that just jumped right into it. He knows what he's doing. I watched his training. I see him hit mitts. I watched him fight now a couple times, and he knows what he's doing. He's athletic. He's explosive. He has some good technique. But I think the question is, what's going to happen when he gets in there with an actual boxer? And that's the thing. Like, he hasn't fought any good boxers. Like, yeah, Tyron Woodley was a UFC champ, but he was a wrestler. Like, he was never known for his, I mean, I guess he did have big power. He would knock people out with overhands and stuff, but it's not like he's a technical boxer.
Gotcha.
So, what weight class are they?
They're big.
I think they're like 200 pounds or so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows if they even bother?
Yeah, right.
I have no idea.
I don't know.
I don't know.
So like fast forward, and you do really well in this fight, and you get a call from Dana White. Now what are we talking about? Now what will happen?
I think my wife will cut my nuts off at that point.
She'll be like, who the fuck's on the phone?
Yeah. I don't know if I would push it anymore.
Yeah.
We'll see though. Ultimately it would have to be
But then
a different contract.
we know that our boy Josh Emmett's going to have a belt. You're going to want to match that. You're going to want to have a shiny belt too.
Yeah. No.
Because we need a couple belts here in Sacramento, right?
The tricky thing is me and Josh are in the same weight class. I don't know how that dude makes 45s, but he does. But he is a beast.
He's amazing. Yeah, we had him on the podcast a couple weeks back.
He is a beast. I don't like getting hit by that guy.
So you might do boxing for a while, you think?
Maybe, yeah, we'll see. I mean, we talked about this. Like, I've never done this, especially bare knuckle. I've never fought in a boxing fight. I mean, yeah, I've fought MMA, but this is going to be the first time boxing competitively. So, and then throw in the mix of it being bare knuckle. So I'm either going to love this or I'm going to hate it. So this is kind of the test run here. We'll see. Like I said, I'm obsessed with the sport right now. I love learning. I love the gains we're making, and it's been fun. So I might go in there and KO this dude and just be like, dude, this is awesome. Or I still could go out there and KO this dude and be like, this was stupid. I'm not doing it ever again. So I don't know. We gotta see when I get in there and fight on February 19th and just kind of see what happens.
And who are you fighting?
I don't think I'm supposed to say it, actually.
Oh, okay.
I think there's some leakage. It got out a little bit, but until they officially announce it. But we do have an opponent.
Cool.
Your energy output on the carnivore diet looked like it was really good when you were training there. Was it consistently pretty good, or did you have a little bit of highs and lows?
You know, and that's one of the reasons I started implementing more carbohydrates back in. I would feel like that big explosive combo that I threw right there. I could maybe throw 2 or 3 of those, and then I would start feeling that explosiveness start to dwindle away. And I didn't like that. So that's why I started throwing in the potatoes and a little bit of the rice and even oats, whole oats, and just kind of adding that stuff back in. And once I did that, it leveled everything back out again. But I think after my fight, I'll probably drop a lot of that stuff again and just go back to
it just for overall like health purposes and not necessarily to be like ripped or anything.
Yeah. I think for me, the hardest thing is as much as I travel, and then being on these hunts, it's tough because like we cook these big dinners for clients where it's like big pasta dinners, spaghetti and, you know, elk meat sauce and, you know, garlic bread. And so we're like serving them, and then I sit down and I have like a ribeye. And they're just like, what the hell? You know? And so it's almost like I got to like go sneak and eat away from them. But yeah, I just sometimes feel bad, and it's tough to stick to. So, but I think all in all, I'm going to try to implement this into my life as much as possible.
Do you have to mess with much running, or have you, you know, you've been in pretty good shape and there's not a lot of reason to run?
I've actually implemented more running in this training for boxing than any of my MMA stuff. Mainly because I only have one discipline to train now. It's like I can focus everything on boxing instead of boxing, kickboxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, strength and conditioning. You know, we're doing strength and conditioning, which we implement the running a lot of times in that also, but then also at home, you know, doing that on my own, and then just boxing. So mitt work, sparring.
Mainly on a treadmill?
Mainly. I'll mix it up though. The tough thing for me is I live up in Auburn, so it's a lot of big hills.
Oh shit, yeah.
And so it's for me to get like a 5-mile run where I'm like sweating enough and like feeling like I burn enough calories to like call it a good workout. It's so much harder. So I don't want to like completely crush my legs on those. So a lot of the times I'll mix in the treadmill and then throw in some of those hill type runs too. Here and there.
Yeah, treadmill's probably a little safer too.
Yeah.
And with all these years of like, you've been wrestling since you were 5, you did UFC, now you're doing this. How have you managed to keep your body from like feeling run down. Like how do you feel right now compared to like maybe when you were 29, 30? Do you feel comparable? And if you do, how are you doing that?
I think I feel comparable. I mean, I think for me, I retired at the end of 2018. So I took, a good 2 years off before I really started doing anything like high intensity again. So I think taking that time off really allowed my body to heal up and just kind of regroup, I think, mentally and physically.
But you still did some training, right? Like you were still lifting.
Yep.
And
I did a couple grappling competitions too. So I would, 4, 5, 6 weeks of training for that and then go do it. But, it still wasn't anything as high intensity like MMA fight, but was still getting in there and doing stuff. And another thing that I really started focusing, I got back to my basics, my core of running and lifting. God, I love lifting weights. I don't know what it is. I just feel so damn good getting in there and doing a hard, heavy lift. I feel like my testosterone just goes through the roof. Like I feel good. My energy is good.
Yeah.
And that's, my body just really reacts really well to heavy lifting. So I was doing a lot of that, running, trying to stay somewhat in shape, keep the health benefits going, and then also just tearing it up in the weight room.
Do you get any time to yourself to just kind of grow like mentally, whether it be like listening to a podcast or, it sounds like you have a very consumed day by like all this training. When you go for a run, maybe, do you have headphones on, or like when you're lifting, do you kind of get in the zone and it just, these things that are just help you with like mindfulness and just to help you feel good each day?
Yeah, I think for me, I try to do the podcast. It's tough because, two kids at home,
right?
Wife, I got 3 businesses and training. And then I'm also, I work with 10 different outdoor companies as an influencer. So I'm like having to create content for that on top of all of that stuff, nonstop. So really my only time would be driving. Like I have an hour drive down to the gym, but that's typically the time I use to catch up on phone calls and do all the work stuff on a phone. So there isn't a ton of like extra time where I can just go and like sit and listen to a podcast like I'd like to. When I run, typically it's whatever music that's motivating to me, but I'm watching Canelo videos. So it's like I'm studying. That's kind of my time to like zone in on that, and that's that feel good for me. I think it's just learning. I'm watching and soaking that in like a sponge. So
yeah. Well, let me ask both of you guys this. For like someone who wants to, let's say they're looking to get into fighting, boxing or something like that, right? If they have no experience, because before you got into boxing, you didn't have any experience with it before you started MMA. How would you suggest that they do it if they want to actually be effective?
Be a beginner, white belt. Start at the bottom and just, like you said, footwork. When I started boxing, or I boxed when I was younger, but when I started again, it was just like line drills, like pushing off your back foot, stepping with your front foot. It's boring, but that's how you get good.
The basics. Get good at the basics. Yeah, fundamentals. I think with anything. I remember teaching kids wrestling, and that was always the first thing I would tell them. Because you get these kids that, they see all the flashy stuff, and they want to start off with that right off the bat. And it's like, no, you got to get good at the basics before you can start doing that. And that's the case with MMA. That's the case with boxing. That's the case with, I feel like, any sport, really. And you got your freak athletes every once in a while that can just basically jump in there and start off doing pretty much anything, but that's extremely rare. So I'd say, master the basics, get as good as you possibly can with that, and then start growing off of that.
I would even say that to somebody who's going to be a black belt, like go back to your fundamentals.
Yeah.
Start at the beginning. Like they're always going to need to be like top priority.
Yeah, we see that a lot with lifting. Somebody will have an error that happens when they do a lift, and then we'll say, okay, we'll go back and use a lighter weight, use a weight that's so light that you can actually think about it, so you can actually practice it. I'm not really sure why in powerlifting in particular, people don't practice it. When it comes to Olympic lifting, Olympic lifters will practice the exercise. Yeah. Bodybuilders will practice because they kind of the nature of the sport, you got to use a lighter weight to, concentrate on the bicep and kind of get that mind muscle connection type of deal. But in powerlifting, people don't think about it as much. And in MMA and boxing, I think people are mindful of it. I think in wrestling, you're pretty mindful of it. Jiu-jitsu, there's a lot of drills. And you can say, hey, that was fucking sloppy. Like, let's go back and correct that. The interesting thing is in powerlifting, when you correct something and you go back to the basics and you go back to using 225 on something like a deadlift, that same error will probably still occur for a long time, but it'll just happen with heavier and heavier weights. You know, because it's really rare for someone to really truly like solve an issue for themselves. In your career, what has been some feedback that you either gotten from just getting your ass kicked or having your team say, hey man, like your left hook is awful. That's why you're getting hit by this or that, or your team giving you like some real straightforward team and your friends giving you straightforward criticism. What has been something you've been able to maybe say, okay, I need to go back to the basics and drill that more because I'm just not that good at that particular thing?
I mean, for me, it was being a wrestler my whole life. The boxing, the stand-up part of it was so new. Like I'd been bent over my whole life in a wrestling stance, and now I'm standing straight up, you know, with my hands up here, and punches are getting whizzed past my face. So it wasn't that I couldn't throw the punches. It was being confident and comfortable in an actual fight to get out there and throw the punches.
Yeah, not going like this.
Yeah. Or just freaking out. Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, I think that was the biggest thing for me was just, and Faber did a good job of trying to put things into perspective for me and just, you know, making me realize, you know, it's not every single punch is going to knock you out. Because I think the biggest fear is, if I open up to throw something, I might get caught. And it's like, well, yeah, but you know, you're tough. You got no neck. This is what Faber used to tell me. You're tough. You have no neck. It's going to be pretty tough to knock you out. So, you know, it took a while for me to learn that part of it. But once I got that confidence and realized, okay, I can start knocking people out. You know, I have the power, I have the speed, I have the explosivity to get in there and put people to sleep. I need to get out there and actually do it. You know, once I figured that out, that's what happened. I got out there, and I think it went on like a 4 or 5 fight streak where I knocked the guy out in a row. And that was mainly because of Faber just being in my ear, you know, telling me like, dude, you have to let your hands go.
Can punching power be trained? It's always kind of a topic of controversy.
To an extent, I believe, to an extent. Like you can give people, especially if you have somebody who's got it kind of naturally. I think there's like somebody who can throw or hit, or you know, they probably picked it up from genetics or when they were a kid. But just getting them stronger, you know, teaching them how to rotate, technical stuff. It's like I think you can to an extent. You can't, you know.
Well, some people are just heavy-handed though too, right?
Yeah. Body mechanics, I think, is a big part of it. Being explosive and strong. I think a mixture of strength. Being explosive and then having the right body mechanics to throw these punches correctly, I think it all comes together. And that's really what makes the heaviest of hitters, I think.
When you see new UFC stuff nowadays, you know, when like as sports evolve, people start doing it when they're younger and younger and younger and maybe concentrating on it. So I'm curious, have you seen anything where like, well, if I started my UFC career now, let's say if you were younger right now, do you think there would be a difference in terms of the way you'd perform? Probably.
And that's, I mean, me and Faber used to talk about this 6 years ago, 7 years ago. Remember Bopo and Andrew, and we had these young kids that were in there when they were, what, 8 years old? They've
been there since they were about
8 years old, and training full MMA though, not just like us, like, oh, I'm a wrestler or oh, I'm a boxer. It's full MMA. And it's like that's the new breed. That's at that time, like there wasn't any of us that had ever done that. And so they're training with us on the daily. And I mean, these kids are both animals now, but it's like, I remember me and Faber used to joke, like, let's get in and get out of this sport before that generation gets in, because it's going to be next level. So
I try to move out of the way.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about recovery, but Amadeo, do you believe in like, you know, cold therapy, sauna? Like, are you a fan of some of that?
Yeah, all that stuff. I think
stay up on the microphone.
Some of it's much better than the other stuff, like sleep, nutrition.
Right.
Like those are going to be like
the real
big
basics.
rocks.
Drill those all the time.
And then like I'm actually a fan of ice baths. So like just getting into an old school tub of ice. And then the cryotherapy stuff, the infrared saunas, all that stuff's great. I don't like it. Some guys can take it like they think that they're automatically recovered because they did 30 seconds in the 200 degrees or whatever it is. But I think it's good supplemental stuff, but it's not
fix
foundation.
Or they take it the other way and they're like, I did 30 minutes, and you're like, that's probably too much. That's probably a little severe with how hard you're training all the time.
Yeah.
How does it make you feel when you do stuff like that? Do you like it? Does it help?
I do, yeah. I've been doing cryo the last few years. I absolutely hate ice baths.
Yeah.
Why?
Oh my God.
It's
They're
tough.
the worst.
It's tough.
But I mean, I notice I get, at least for me, when I would do ice baths in college, and then I do the cryo now, which is only 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I feel like I get the same results. So I'm like, I cut out the ice bath. I don't know. There's probably scientific studies say that maybe the ice bath's better, but I feel good, and that's all I need. So
There we go.
But I do sauna too. I've been doing, after one of our long workouts, I'll finish off in the sauna for, 20, 30 minutes and just sweat it out, feel good, get out. Yeah, I like them. I feel like that type of stuff for recoveries, it's good. Whether it's physically good, at least it's mentally good. So if that's the case, then it's good, So
How old are your kids?
I have a 7-week-old and a 2.5-year-old.
You're going to teach them to hunt? You're going to teach them to fight?
Oh yeah, hunt for sure. Self-defense.
Right.
I'd probably rather not see them compete in fighting, but if it's something they wanted to do, then I'd be all for it. But the hunting's pretty cool. My youngest daughter, this year in the fall, our California turkey season, she sat in the blind with me, and I
cool.
harvested a turkey with her right there, and she got to see the whole thing go down. And we plucked it all together and we cooked it. I showed her from start to finish of how our Thanksgiving turkey comes to the table. So
that's great.
She got to see it all and loved it, and it was pretty cool.
That's really great, because like someone who's 25 that's never seen that before, they see something like that and they think it's gross.
Yeah,
it's like, no, this is the
life.
This is the process. Yeah,
that is life. This is what we all. I mean, if you're eating a turkey at the table, like this happened somewhere, just somebody else did it for you. And I'd rather be the one in charge and know exactly who's touched this and how it's been processed and put on our table. So it was pretty cool. She sat there, she had a little chair next to me, and she's got a little yogurt pouch. And, it was first thing in the morning. So she woke up, she's got a little beanie on and all bundled up, and she's just sitting there, and they come walking in, and I'm like, all right, they're coming in, get ready. As soon as one comes into 20 yards, Papa's going to get them. And she's just sitting there sucking on her yogurt pouch, and there's like she's watching a movie, feet straight out. And ended up pulling back, shot one, and they gobbled when I shot, because it like startled them. And she's like, oh, they gobbled. She got all excited, and it's flopping around, and we went out there and she got to see it up close and, wanted to touch it. And, I think it's crucial to, at least for me, wanting to show my family the start to finish, where our food comes from, having the respect for nature and understanding that, for us to eat meat, something's got to die, and we do it with respect and we do it with honor. I'm not, driving around in the back of a truck with a machine gun, just mowing shit down and laughing and driving off. That's not what hunting's about. So, I want her to understand that. I want both of my daughters to understand that. My wife came from Missouri, so her dad hunted a little bit, but she didn't really know much about it. But I got her into hunting a bit. She's killed a wild boar, a couple turkeys with her bow and arrow, and she lives off the wild game that we eat, or that we harvest, and loves it. And it's kind of cool. It's very, I guess this day and age, it's very different, but that's one of the reasons why we started the Provider, and that brand is just spreading that knowledge and trying to keep that tradition alive for this next generation, and let people know that living off the land is okay. I feel like a lot of people in this day and age look at it like, they demonize it, and it's you're evil and you're a horrible person if you hunt, and it's like, you're just bloodthirsty, and that's not the case, and that's what we want to spread, that there is respect. I respect these animals. I'm not going out there to kill just because I feel like killing something. Like, I'd rather go out and harvest that meat and put it in my freezer and live off it, and know that no other human has ever touched that. There's no antibiotics, there's no hormones, there's nothing crazy that's pumped into it. Who knows? It's created in the lab. I don't know what the hell they put in them, but it's something that I've done. I've put in the time and the energy and the effort, and now we get to reap the rewards and live off this healthy meat and feel good and know exactly where everything came from. So
what would you like your kids to learn? What would you like to pass on from like yourself and your wife to your kids?
I mean, if anything, that are you just talking about just in life in general?
Yeah, just in general. Yeah.
Oh man, that as far, I mean, you obviously see the passion that I have for the outdoors and what hunting and fishing and that lifestyle means to me. I think being able to pass that passion on to them would be like the ultimate goal for me, you know, and having my daughters, whether they want to hunt or not when they get older, just understanding why it's done and why we do it. And, you know, the connection that we have to our food, because we're becoming so disconnected from everything food wise, you know, being able to walk into a grocery store and buy a slab of meat that's just in a little styrofoam container with plastic over the top. There's no face to it. There was no death associated with it, you know, and you'd be surprised how many people, when I post to hunting, people say, why don't you just go to the grocery store and buy your meat like everybody else and stop killing these animals? Like, no joke. I get that so many times a year. And it's like, it blows my mind. I don't understand how you can become so disconnected from reality with things like that. But that's the case. And I if I could pass anything along, it's just knowing, you know, what our existence here on earth is all about. And for us to eat meat, something has to die. And that's the circle of life.
As far as hunting's concerned, man, because what you're talking about is like hunting and then harvesting it for food, whether it's like your family or other families. What are your thoughts on people who just like hunt for sport hunting, where they're like it's not used for food or anything? I know that some animals people hunt them because there are actually too many of them in certain areas. So there's that. But what do you think about that side of hunting? Do you do any of that? Like, is there?
So that's a very big, I guess, fallacy is what I can say here. There is no such thing as, I mean, I guess there is a such thing, but sport hunting, when you say you kill it not for food, I guess the only type of hunting that I can think of is probably predator hunting, like coyotes, you know, to control population. But like, say you go to Africa, these guys that spend these hundreds of thousands of dollars on hunts over in Africa, that money goes back into conservation and goes back into paying security guards to monitor the poachers that go out and just kill a rhino, cut its horn off, and leave the body there. You know, African poachers. So that money is used for conservation for those animals. It gets put back into the economy there. And then anything that is killed, all the tribes eat. Like, that is, so you got a guy that go, I mean, this is always a very unsettling topic. A lot of people debate on this. So, and I'm kind of like, I'm almost in the middle here, because I get these guys spend this big money to go over there. That money gets put back into conservation, which helps all the animals. They know that. Their goal is to go over there. They just want to kill a rhino or whatever it is, you know, a giraffe or whatever. But they know that food's going to be created for all these tribes. So when, say they kill, you know, whatever it is over there, the tribesmen come in and they process and take everything from that animal. And now that gets spread out through all the tribes, and that's food and hides and whatever else they make from the animals, the bones, you know what I mean? They use everything, the organs. And so that's all a usable source. But the main reason that guy went over there was to harvest a trophy. Whether what he's doing is, you know, a positive or not, that's the argument there. He just wants to go over there to kill a trophy. So I see both sides there in that sense. That's kind of a touchy subject. But coming back over here to the States, like, there isn't any source of trophy hunting. Legally, whatever you go out and hunt, you have to take, and, you know, whatever you do with it after that, who knows, you know, but you have to legally take it home. So if I go kill a elk or a deer or a bear or a turkey, whatever, I can't just come up, take a picture and walk off, you know? Like, I have to harvest that animal, break it all down, take it home with me, and have the meat there, which I eat all of it anyways. But and I think most hunters do. I've personally never met anybody that just goes and kills something and like takes it and throws it in the trash or anything like that. So,
Yeah.
So yeah, the sport hunting, I guess it would just have to be associated with Africa. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah, some of that stuff. Because like, I'm happy you explained that, because I've never looked into any of this. But you just see random pictures of people standing by an animal on social media, and then all the comments are like, poor animal. Yeah. And then you're like, oh, that kind of sucks, right? Where they don't understand everything that you just mentioned. That's actually helping the people. That's helping the economy over there. There's a lot of actual potential benefits to this, and it's not just some evil guy going out to kill an animal and leave it there to rot. You know?
Yeah.
Or people just see like the stuffed elk on the wall and think like, oh, that's really why you killed an animal, just to put it on your wall. But it's like, no, it's like the whole other side of that wall too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's like the taxidermy work. I have taxidermy work. There's a lot of hunts that were super memorable to me. My dad and my wife and I, before our kids, we did a backcountry Oregon hunt where we had a company, pack us in on horses and set up a wall tent, wood burning stove, and we lived out of that for a week, and I harvested this elk with my wife right by my side. And it's on my YouTube. I actually have a YouTube channel, and I self-film most of my hunts and edit them myself and put them up there so if anyone wants to watch. But this hunt is on there. And what's so special about this was it was the first time my wife had ever been right there for me with an elk. I harvested this elk, but the goal, it was a public land hunt. If I got a bull, we were going to use the back straps and a lot of that meat. We were going to get married. I think it was a few months away. So we needed to get an elk there. I got an elk in Utah, and I got a bull moose in Alaska. We took all that meat, and that's what fed our entire wedding, our whole wedding. So yeah, we did so many cool different appetizers and all the main courses and everything. So what was super special about that hunt was that my wife was right there. She was filming me, and we ended up getting it. And so now we had enough meat that was the last animal of the 3 that we needed. And so it was just super memorable. So I got that bull is, the skull with the antlers are up on my wall. And that's what I look at. And that's what reminds me of that hunt and all those memories.
Is that the bull moose or an elk?
That's the bull moose.
That's the bull moose.
Yep.
Shit.
Me and my buddy went up about 150 miles up the Yukon and the Koyukuk River on his little boat. You could see it back there.
What's that thing, like 1,000 pounds?
Oh, 2,000 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah. Biggest animal I've ever walked up on right there.
Oh, shit.
I drew that tag and it took us over 10 hours to get that thing cut up and on the boat and back to our camp that day.
Damn. Yeah, now you shot it, and now you got to try to figure out who's going to carry this fucking thing.
No, it was a ton of work. We had to just break it all down. You're basically butchering a whole cat, like a beef cow,
right?
Two of us. So,
wow. Yeah. How do you get the 2,000 pounds out of there?
Well, I mean, that's 2,000 pounds on the hoof. I mean, really take the guts out and hide and the rack itself.
You end up with a couple 100 pounds of good meat.
Nah, it's probably, I think after everything was about 400 pounds, 400 or 500 pounds of meat.
That's a lot of work to haul that out of there.
Oh, yeah.
And you can't leave anything behind?
No. I mean, you leave like the bones and stuff.
Got it.
But like, all the meat, I took the heart, the liver, the tongue. We did, the head, the cape, the hide, like all that stuff.
You ever eat any brain?
I haven't, man.
No?
I'm a little bit weird there. I don't know. I might.
It looks gnarly.
Yeah, it looks gnarly.
It's got a weird look to it.
I just know that there's a lot of, at least like, in some animals, they carry a lot of disease in the brain, chronic wasting disease and trigonosis, in the spine and in the brain. But I think trigonosis is basically through the meat too. So like bears, a lot of bears have trigonosis. Wild pigs, that basically any animal that eats meat.
That's the brain from the raw meat experiment, eating that raw brain.
Yeah, that's a little bit too much for me.
Savage.
I don't think I would do it, but
no.
You mentioned you mentioned earlier in having some losses in your career. And then you mentioned it when you talked about hunting. I don't know if you recognize that you mentioned it, but I'm into like philosophical shit. And I think you basically said you got to be one with it. And then you talked about kind of the circle of life at the end. Is that sort of a philosophy that carries through for you and with you on just about everything that you do, is to kind of be one with like the earth and be one with kind of all of us, really.
I mean, I guess, yeah, it's not ever anything that I'm like really deeply focused on, like becoming one with the earth. But I feel like my lifestyle, if I were to step back and look at it, I am. I feel like I'm at one, I'm very close with my surroundings when I get out there in the field, with whatever athletic event that I'm competing for and training for, you have to become one with it. Yeah. You have to become focused. You have to understand, I guess the ins and outs on anything you're doing, whether it's a hunt or training for a boxing fight or a UFC world title, trying to start a business or running a family, like, whatever it is, if you're not 100% connected mentally and physically, shit's going to fall through the cracks and bad things will probably start to happen or at least pile up and go south. So yeah, I think that's definitely something I live my life by without, I guess, really thinking about it.
I'm curious about this, man. And I guess it's just going to come out of kind of left field, but we talk a lot about topics like this on the podcast. So, I mean, you're top tier athlete, right? Extremely popular. I don't know. How long have you been with your wife?
Oh man, why would you ask me that?
Okay, don't worry. But you've been with your wife
long time. I think it's been like 7 years. We were just talking about this the other day, but yeah, it's 7 or 8 years. I think we've been together.
7 or 8 years, right?
I could be wrong on that. She's gonna hate me.
Well, we'll edit it.
Yeah. You're good.
No, I think you'll bring it around right now.
Yeah.
Well,
within social media, YouTube, there on all these people talking about relationships and how guys should handle things. There's this like red pill sort of thing where a lot of guys are telling men, when you get to a certain point, don't really ever settle down with one woman. It's not a great idea, especially as you become a more high value man, etc. Right? Mm-hmm. But you have settled down with your wife. You have a family, 2 kids, and obviously you're extremely popular. So there's probably a lot of people who would desire to be with you, but you're sticking and you're staying with a family, even though you have so many options. Mm-hmm. Why did you choose to go to that route? And even though you have plenty of options, but why did you choose to go down the route of settling down with one woman, having a family, etc.?
Oh man, this is a very off the wall question, but I like it. Yeah, I like it. Man, I think for me, so my mom and my dad split up when I was a baby. So I never remember them being together. And my dad remarried and was with this woman for 15, 20 years. Had my other half brothers and sister. And I remember going through that life and just seeing all the like turmoil and the ups and downs and the uncomfortable times and a lot of the fighting and they ended up splitting up again, and my dad never got remarried. He dated and stuff like that. And I don't know. I've always wanted, and it's probably because of that, I've always craved like a good solid family, maybe, and a good foundation. And I mean, I actually messed up in the short run on this. Right out of college, got married and ended up getting a divorce, and I think it was because of searching for that maybe, and just wanting to have that right person to settle down with and understand that, okay, this is the person for me and I want to start a family. But as the fight career started ramping up and things, started going in different directions all the time, just quickly realized this wasn't the person that I was wanting to do that with, and ended up ending that relationship. So, I met my wife, and I guess it was a different feeling. It was a little bit more mature from the beginning of that last relationship, and had just decided that this is the one. I think this is the person that I could call my best friend and spend the rest of my life with and create a family with and feel good about doing this with, and understand that she's a good person, and I don't see the things happening that my dad went through with this human being. So, it was a decision that ultimately came from the heart. Like, it wasn't something I had to like really think too much about. It just was what felt right. And we jumped right in and did it. And we have a family now, and things have been really good. So, you know, she was at my side with every fight after, you know, once we got together, she was there at every single one of my fights. And she's not able to come to this boxing fight, which is, she was actually just saying this the other day, how she's upset that this is going to be the first one that she doesn't make. But, you know, life is different now with 2 kids, and her mother's having some health issues, and there's just a lot of stuff going on at home. So it's just one of those things. We're going to go out there and we're going to wreck shop, and then we'll come back and get back to family life for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of, I think, having a good partner helps amplify just about everything. Mm-hmm. The holidays, event, you know, stuff with your kids. It just makes everything like fairly smooth, you know, and maybe it's not for everybody. Like maybe people can have different types of relationships. Some people, they enjoy being single. I got many friends that enjoy being single, and they're older, and they've tried to have relationships, but they didn't like that. They liked being more on their own. Yeah. And so I guess it's like to each their own. But for me personally, I've found it just, it makes things more like, I love getting home to my family and having dinner with my family at night. Yeah. Going on vacation and like experiencing stuff that's cool. Like it's fun for me, but it's so much more fun when I'm with my kids, or going to like an event. Yeah. Like I like wrestling, and I like going to different events and concerts and things like that. But it's way more fun if you go with someone that like really digs it, or if you go with like a little kid. You know, I got nephews too that I like to have tag along for stuff like this, and they're like so pumped, you know, and it's like that just, it makes it more enjoyable, in my opinion.
100%. And you're right. I mean, having a good partner makes life so much easier. You know, someone that's in your corner, and you're not having to fight and bicker and argue, and you know, someone that makes your life better in a positive way. And, you know, it's so much easier. And I feel like that's why I can have so many different irons in the fire. You know, like I said, I have all these businesses that we're trying to maintain and oversee and run and make sure everything's going smooth, and, you know, working with the 10 companies, and, you know, trying to train for a fight, and trying to be a good husband and a father at the same time, mixing all that stuff in there. It's tough, man. It really is. I have my aunts and uncles text me all the time, like, you need to slow down. You need to stop, like spend some more time for yourself and your family. And it's like, I know I will. We're almost to that point. But my thought is, it's like, I want to grind. I want to hustle now while I'm young and I'm full of energy, and I can actually meet these opportunities and have success with them, to where, you know, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, we're set, and I don't have to stress so much when I can just spend more time with my family and do all that fun stuff, you know? And I get the argument too, which I get this from my wife, is, you know, you're not guaranteed tomorrow, which I understand that too. So it's a fine balancing act, man. It's like, how do you grind and do what you need to make all the best opportunities come true, but also spend that quality family time and make sure you're there enough to, you know, to make it all worthwhile. So it's a balancing act for sure. And it's sometimes tough, man. I break down sometimes. I can't handle it, but my wife does a good job, slap me around a little bit. No, she doesn't, but, you know,
wish she did, right?
Yeah. Sometimes I wish.
But I deserved it, I promise.
Yeah. Yeah, man,
yeah, it is a tough, just a tough juggling act. But I'd also say, like, I don't think it's great to be there for them all the time. You know, you want your kids, you want them to like kind of, I mean, your kids are really, really young. So, but like a couple years from now, it's good for them to find out shit on their own. It's good for them to fall on their bike. It's good for them to unfortunately get hurt. You know, I used to like be sick to my stomach watching my kid just run across the room. I was like, he's going to kill himself on something. He's going to totally wipe out, and he's going to smash his head on something, or my daughter. And I was always just like, but you learn after a while, you know, you learn it's good for them to fall. It's good for them to get hurt. Then they recognize, okay, that door pinched my finger last time I tried to push on it. That's the craziest scream you'll ever hear. Look forward to that one, Andrew.
Nope. He's already testing out his vocal cords, and he's fucking loud.
The worst is when you hurt them. When you're like, you did it, and you're like, you pinched their hand. I think went to close a door one time, like a car door, and I like slammed it on Jake's hand or something. It was like the loudest scream. Like obviously I wasn't trying to, but like I was getting him out of the car and we were getting stuff, and I didn't, slam the door. I just closed it. But the door will like go, and it'll go, poof, and it will slam kind of shut right on his finger. It's just like the loudest scream you've ever heard in your life.
It breaks my heart.
The other day I just picked him up as I was leaving to come here, and I was like, I love you. And I picked him up and I just wasn't paying attention, and boonk, right on the fucking light. I'm like, no. Luckily he was like, he thought it was funny, but I just, in that moment, I'm like, I killed him. That's it. I'm dead. He's done. But he was good. So yeah, I'm definitely that person right now.
You start getting real big, like when they fall asleep and you scoop them up, and then you're trying to figure out how to like move them around and like put them in their bed or whatever, and you're like bonk their head and their feet, and you're like,
well, now he's strong enough to, like, if I'm holding him and he wants to get down, he'll just like hyperextend his back, and then he just like wiggles out of my arms, like, all right, fuck it, dude, here's the floor and let's go play. But it's kind of frustrating because I can't even hold them back already.
they're so strong.
Yeah.
All right, Andrew, want to take us on out of here, buddy?
Sure thing. Thank you, everybody, for checking out today's episode. Please make sure you guys like today's episode on YouTube and drop us a review on iTunes. We sincerely appreciate it. Go ahead and leave us a comment on anything that you guys liked about today's episode, and ring that bell notification so you guys don't miss any more dope episodes like today's. And please follow the podcast at Mark Bell's Power Project on Instagram, at MB Power Project on TikTok and Twitter. My Instagram and Twitter is at I am Andrew Z. And Nsima, where can people find you?
And Nsima Inyang on Instagram and YouTube, and Nsima Inyang on TikTok and Twitter. Chad, Amadeo, where can people find y'all and all your stuff?
Just at Chad Mendes is pretty much the same handle I use for Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, I guess. And then YouTube, just Chad Mendes. Yeah.
Say, Amadeo?
At Capital Strength Performance on Instagram.
There you go.
Dope. If you ever need to have someone have your back, make sure it's not this guy. Andrew, you mind bringing up the 1,085 squat?
Yes.
Yeah. So
this is great.
I tried to find the biggest, strongest person. And I'm like, this guy's my boy. Like, he'll have my back. But you'll see in this video, like,
let's watch this.
You can't really. You can't really.
You
just can't count anybody.
This is how Slingshot began. I started the company.
Yeah.
He is pretty responsible. He's definitely responsible for me being leaner nowadays.
Look at that.
1,085 squat.
It's
I'm going down. Amadeo's got me. He's got me. Oh, wait. Just a little late there on the help. Don't mind me. I'll just be messed up for the next couple months.
Dude, that couldn't have felt good. Holy shit.
No, it didn't feel great.
Oh, but we did an instant replay? Okay.
I do blame Amadeo, not the two side spotters that weigh 135 pounds.
Oh man.
Dude.
He's supposed to stand up, not.
That wasn't what I was trying to do. In case anybody's confused.
That's how we practice it the whole 3 months before.
I'm gonna lay this giant weight down on these straps back here. It's gonna be epic.
You were just doing knees over toes before anybody.
Yeah. See? Yeah. Trying to do it on one leg with that weight. Strength is never a weakness. Weakness is never a strength. I'm at Mark Smelly Bell. Catch you guys later. Bye.